I believe Bitcoin today should be trading over $1 million US per Bitcoin. And it's not. It's trading somewhere around 50,000, and some days it's trading at 45, and some days it's trading at 65. I'd spent close to 30 years in the markets managing money professionally, and it takes a toll on your body and on your mind. And I said, okay, I'm going to retire. I'm going to go skiing. I'm going to do the good things in life, right? Then someone introduced me to Bitcoin, and I'm like, fuck Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a Ponzi. Like, don't even start with this. And they said, okay, listen to me, hear me through at least. And you know all the beautiful things about Bitcoin now, scarcity, 21 million backed by math and code. But the one thing that this guy showed me, and it was actually a guy called Fred Pye, another Canadian, Quebecer, Montrealer, who started the company 3IQ. 3IQ was one of the first Bitcoin, and it was in fact the first Bitcoin closed-end ETF to be launched on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And I love that idea. I wanted, once he convinced me about Bitcoin, and the reason he was able to convince me, he showed me one thing, Joe, and I want you to stress this with your viewers. Mm-hmm. If you are skeptical about Bitcoin, but you want to see a beautiful, living, breathing system working, go to tradeblock.com and watch the blockchain in action. And all he had to do was show me this thing. And as an engineer, I'm like, you see all the hashes flashing across that are going to go into the mempool, that are going to go into the next block that's formed. And as a visual for an engineer, I'm like, what? Oh my God, this is beautiful. Like right then, I'm like, I love this technology. And you tell me I can transfer this anywhere in the world. It can settle in 10 minutes with no intermediary. I don't have to worry about these idiot banks. This is beautiful. Oh my God, this is beautiful. Anyway, I went down the rabbit hole in 2016 and I went hard. Why? I'm just going to tell you again, because I had been essentially looking for the solution to the fiat Ponzi for close to 30 years. And Bitcoin is it. And it's now I'm going to jump to my conclusion and we can jump. Bitcoin is the best trade and investment opportunity I've ever seen in my life. Okay. Which means the upside is so extreme versus the downside. It's way better than even asset-backed commercial paper at 20 cents on the dollar. Now, the Caisse de dépôt et placement du Québec are idiots, okay? Don't follow them. They're going to get into Bitcoin when it's way, way, way too late, meaning it'll be at $2 million a Bitcoin by the time that the case gets involved. And I hope that some of the listeners understand. It's not that I don't like the case. I just don't like the way they manage risk. Why buy something at 100 cents on the dollar and blow it out the doors at 20 cents on the dollar, like they did with asset-backed commercial paper, without doing the mathematics, without understanding the risk return and how you could hedge? They made a mistake lending at 100 cents on the dollar, but they also made a mistake selling that loan or that asset-backed commercial paper at 20 cents on the dollar. There's got to be a price for your risk. And this is what I want to stress to your viewers that I've practiced for over 30 years in my life. Okay. And right now, Bitcoin, I can say without a doubt, is the most exciting, best asymmetric trade opportunity I've ever seen in 35 years. So we can talk about that, but that's my history, and it's a long one. And it should be understood that I didn't just fall off the turnip truck, okay, and just say, oh, I'm just fresh out of school and I'm going to tell you why you need to own Bitcoin. Fuck you, okay? If you're 25 years old, you really don't know much about how the world really works. And I'm not saying that the kids out there, they get it, but they have never sat in a risk chair. And then the flip side is these professors at a school who have never sat in a risk chair, but have these books on theory about how things should work. Let me tell you, markets do not work like they are described in a textbook when the world is unraveling. And this is why you need Bitcoin. So I'm going to stop talking. You can ask me some questions, but that was my Bitcoin journey. I have been studying Bitcoin since 2016, and it amazes me. Every single day, I learn something new about how to appreciate Bitcoin and how to value it as the best investment opportunity I've ever seen.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. I had a similar story with Bitcoin. When I discovered it, it took me way longer, because when I discovered it in 2017, I said there is no way in the world the banking system, the banker that have built their system for hundreds of years, are just gonna let it go for this thing called Bitcoin. And I put my money in BitConnect, which was a Ponzi scheme, and I lost everything.
Oh, darn.
And but it was only $4,000. You know, I was
Doesn't
young.
matter. $4,000 when you're young is a lot of money.
Yeah, it was the only investment money I had, but that's fine. I learned. And in 2020, when I started to see video and I had more money at that time, I just bought a house, and now I was starting, okay, I got a house, I got what I need. Now, what should I do? Where should I invest my money? I started to see video about Michael Saylor.
Oh, yeah.
And that was done.
Well, is that cool? Because he's an engineer as well, right? And so Saylor is beautiful, because one of the things that I value as an engineer is the first law of thermodynamics, which is the law of conservation of energy. And that's basically what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is digital energy. And we could get into that. But yes, Saylor's brilliant. I've been on some Twitter Spaces conversations with him. I've met him at conferences. He's a walking computer mainframe, but he can talk. I've gone to school with rocket scientists like him at McGill, but most of them can't even talk, right? They're just gibberish because they're going in their head. Saylor is able to do the math in his head, and then he's able to talk and eloquently explain his rationale.
He's something else. He's a beast.
Yes, sir. I agree.
All right. So do you think that everybody should own Bitcoin? And if so, why?
So great question. So yes, everybody, I have a statement that if you own 0 Bitcoin, you're actually taking more risk than if you have a proper portfolio allocation. So let's think about that for a sec. I'm not saying to be 100% invested in Bitcoin. I'm not 100% invested in Bitcoin. There are some people who are 100% invested in Bitcoin, but by and large, my advice is for people to get exposure to Bitcoin at a level that's greater than 5% of their investable assets, including real estate, but less than, and I'll throw out a number, 15%. It's not because I don't want people who believe in it so much that they can go higher than 15%, but Bitcoin requires education. It requires conviction. It requires you being able to not look at the price of Bitcoin on a daily basis and worry about what it's doing. We need to think about Bitcoin where it's going from today, 20 years from now. And the price action might be choppy, but I'm very confident it's from the bottom left to the top right in terms of the chart in its trajectory. So if you own 10% of Bitcoin, just as a mid level, 10% Bitcoin, you still have 90% of your assets in other things that many people forget to look at. All they're doing now is, oh my God, I own 10% Bitcoin. Oh my God. You gotta learn not to look at that 10%. And we're going to evaluate that in 10 years. Why? Or 20 years. I believe Bitcoin today should be trading over $1 million US per Bitcoin. And it's not. It's trading somewhere around 50,000. And some days it's trading at 45, and some days it's trading at 65. But you got to understand, those are rounding error prices in the context of where I think it ultimately goes to and where it should be trading today.